so support they give me to help me to keep the videos coming at such a on such a frequent basis. So yeah, this is my small way of giving something back for all support and love that they show. And I have a couple of questions already in the live chat. Apologies if the quality isn't so good, by the way. Hopefully, I might. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening at this moment. I'm going to try and answer some of the questions from Patreon that were left on the link for this particular video. So please bear with the quality. Hopefully, it will resolve itself. I'm a couple of questions about the World Cup. So, if Croatia and England meet in the World Cup, who will you root for, and will that have an effect on your family relationship? Well, as we speak, it's being decided who England will meet in the semi-finals, and I'm still pinching myself that England have got that far. It's a huge deal for us Brits or us English fans, having put up with so much disappointment over the years. But as we speak, it's being battled out by Russia and Croatia, and I was hoping I'd have a result by now, which is why I scheduled the live stream for now. But I guess when I finish the live stream, I'm going to find out. Or if any of you are watching the game, please let me know in the live chat so I can give you my reaction. But all I can say is if England end up having to play Croatia, it will be interesting, put it that way. That was from Martin, by the way, so thank you, Martin. Greg Evans says, it's a World Cup. Did you play football as a JW? We used to play against brothers from different areas and congregations. We would get counselled about playing competitive sports. Greg, yes, I used to love playing football. It was one of the few joys. Well, I guess I had a few joys in life other than football, but it was certainly something that allowed me to kind of be distracted from the monotony of JW life. And there were games where you'd get maybe an elder pulling you to one side and telling you to calm it down or something like that. And there would inevitably be talks whenever there was a major tournament. There would be talks warning witnesses to not be too nationalistic. So yeah, that aspect of cult repression did filter its way down. Martin says, I have heard that they are starting to liquidate all of the property that has been donated to the branch all across America. Is there any truth to this? That's not something I've heard. That sounds rather drastic, so I'd have to have some evidence before I went along with that. But I can certainly see Watchtower moving in that direction. But again, it's just a case of waiting for the evidence to present itself. Martin also asks, what are your thoughts on forced donations or tithing? I think Watchtower is in violation of the RICO Act. It is a protection racket and those funds should be taxed. This includes the funds to take care of the circuit overseer, his car and his apartment, also the forced donations at circuit assembly and special. What the laws are in America. I was pretty appalled at some of the material that I brought to people's attention in the Unrighteous Riches video that I recently did. And I'm not a legal expert. It's just a case of bringing the information to people's attention. And if it turns out that something illegal's going on, hopefully that will find its way to the relevant authorities. Sorry if it's a bit fuzzy. It seems fuzzy on the connection. Tell you what, let me just take a moment to try and improve the connection. Okay. So what I've done, I'm hoping that works. I've killed the normal Wi-Fi, and I'm going straight off my phone's data package, and I'm hoping that might be a bit more reliable. So we'll see if that makes any difference. So I do apologise for the technical issues in this particular live stream. Andrew says, in the 2016 convention bunker video, they talk about their message of warning turning to a message of judgment. I don't remember this ever being mentioned before that moment. Is this a glimpse of what's to come? I think it's a fairly recent thing. I certainly don't remember it being talked about in any well, I don't remember it being talked about when I was at JW, but certainly in the last couple of years that has been more of a thing where they're saying, well, the Great Tribulation's so close now that, you know, there's no longer going to be preaching the good news. It will be preaching a message of judgment. So I mean, goodness knows whether they'll actually start doing that at some point. But the problem that you have once they start doing anything like that is that they've gone past the point of no return, and they can't then go back to, oh well, that didn't work, so we'll revert back to preaching about the good news. Once you've said Armageddon's here or the Great Tribulation's here, you really embarrass yourself, because you then have to do a complete U-turn at some point. Becky says, what is the process for making a video? Oh, I liked this question. How long does it take? Do you use a script? How long does it take to record what ends up being an hour-long video? Do you use special equipment? They turn out so well, it must take a lot of work. Becky, it does take a lot of work. And it really depends on what kind of video it is. I did go through a phase of scripting almost everything, or at least half of the video was scripted, and I actually stopped doing that because I found it added to the length of time it took me to make a video. Because if you script a video, first of all, it's going to take you longer to film yourself, because you've scripted the words, and so you might as well get them spot on, and so it will take even more takes to get to say the right thing. And if you write a script for an audio video, you've then got a whole other component of video production, where you are first of all writing, then editing your script, then recording on the microphone, then editing the audio file, and then putting the audio file into the video file. And I did go through a phase of doing that for a lot of videos, and I've scaled back on that now, so that you'll notice that for the most part I try to speak extemporaneously. In my last video, Unrighteous Riches, there was a part where I actually scripted it towards the beginning, and that was only because I was talking about something that was quite complicated and potentially legally sensitive, and I wanted to make sure I was precise in what I was saying. That's the only real value of having a scripted video, is that you minimize botch-ups basically, and things that you then have to edit. But the drawback is that you take longer in filming, because you make mistake after mistake after mistake until you nail the line. But bottom line, there is a lot of work that goes into the videos, and equipment wise, I have I use a MacBook, which has been invaluable in my work. Getting that, and it was actually a gift from one of my supporters who wanted to kind of contribute to the back end, to the kind of equipment side of things. And ever since I got the MacBook, I think that was at the beginning of 2016, it was just in time for the child abuse feature length video that I made. It completely transformed everything. And in terms of cameras, I now have a Canon which takes beautiful shots, but for my regular rebuttal videos, I tend to use what I'm using now, which is my Samsung S7 phone, simply because the quality, I mean, I don't know what the quality is like now because it's live streaming, but the quality is very good, and it's basically as good as I need it to be at this particular point. I might upgrade at some point, but I just find it very, very straightforward to use the phone and just pause, record, and then I end up with a nice, neat kind of video file that I can then go and edit. So yeah, there's lots. It really depends on what kind of video I'm making as to what equipment I use, what process I have, whether there's a script or not, and how long it takes. But an hour rebuttal probably nowadays would take me a couple of days. Sometimes I can do it in a day, but two days is more realistic. And a 2 hour video is more like 4 days once everything's added together. So that's how much work is involved. But thank you for that question. Peter Yike asked quite a long question regarding the recent dedicated funds video, and if Peter doesn't mind, I'm going to save that in my back pocket and go to the oh good grief, the super chat, which is really filling up. Okay, we'll see if we can get through this. So Linda Lawton asks, any updates on how GDPR is affecting Watchtower? Any fines yet? Linda, I don't have any updates. I have heard one or two things, but honestly, that side of things, I feel as though we basically covered what needed to be covered, and I haven't heard of Watchtower getting in legal trouble, I don't think. But if that changes, then I can see us revisiting that subject. Truth Seeker Atheist says, has any thought been given to alter the annual survey to get some idea of the financial liabilities Watchtower may be facing with the sex abuse scandal? I think that's a similar question to the one that I've just skipped, by the way. So I'm going to ignore the Peter's question because Peter's the same person here. So I guess here's the problem with with using the survey in that way. We can't be precise when it comes to. I mean, when we are surveying people, we're getting their opinions on things. But when it comes to things like financial liabilities that Watchtower is facing, we have no way of verifying that information. It's one thing to collate people's opinions, and it's another thing to collate hard facts and then take that information and go and report on it. So the survey is a little bit limited, I would argue, in exactly what we can use it for, and that's probably a bit of a stretch to use it in quite that way. Truth Seeker Atheist also says, in God is not great. Christopher Hitchens said, religion is poison. Do you feel the same way, or are there harmless religions in your opinion? I've read God is Not Great. I think it's a wonderful book. I think Hitch, it's hard to disagree with Hitch when he made his arguments. I think if I were just purely from the point of view of winning people over and persuading people, which is what I'm most interested in, I probably wouldn't use the word poison. I think that religion is a delusion, and delusions needn't necessarily be negative. They could be comforting, but on balance, I feel that the impact that religion is having is negative, which is the point Hitch was trying to make. Again, I just don't quite feel comfortable using the word poison, but I'm sure if Hitch were here, he'd give us a barnstorming argument as to why that word fits. So I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. I've just realised I've missed a few questions from before Linda's question. So Canal de Urim says, I would like to congratulate on the last two wonderful videos, Lying for Jehovah and Unrighteous Riches. I really appreciate being part of the group of people that are supporting your work. Well, that's really kind of you. Thank you, Canal. Lying for Jehovah was obviously voted for by my Patreon supporters, so that's the kind of control that... Control sounds nasty, doesn't it? But that's the kind of influence, the positive influence that Patreon is having on my work now, where they are actually suggesting videos, and the videos that they suggest end up being really great ideas. So it's actually the Medo-Persian level vote that we have every month. I genuinely look forward to seeing what video it spits out, because I know that when I make that video, if that's the one everyone's chosen, then more likely it's going to get a lot of views. So yeah, I was really pleased with the Lying for Jehovah video, and I'm pleased with how Unrighteous Riches came together, because that was... I mean, I had to make a decision there, because I really need to be getting on with the convention rebuttals. But I just feel as though this is quite an urgent thing where, you know, there's some compelling information that hasn't quite been all brought together yet. And I felt I needed to do that before I could then move on and just relax a little bit into the remaining convention rebuttal. So hopefully I made the right decision there. Canal also asks, can you give us updates about the production of The Truth About the Truth? The production is sort of on hold at the moment. Is it on hold? There's always some kind of interview in the pipeline, so there's probably a couple of interviews that are close. But we're kind of waiting for a few issues to resolve themselves in terms of funding before we can really go for it with, you know, with getting the filming finished and then moving on to post-production. So I guess we're now looking at realistically 2019 at the earliest, probably more like 2020, but I've never been involved in a project on this kind of scale before, so I don't want to promise anything that can't be delivered, but that's, I think, realistically what we're looking at the moment. Canal also asks, what about the plans for future collabs? Is something already planned? I try to keep as open-minded when it comes to collabs as possible. You'll probably notice on the channel page there's a tab that says Lloyd on other channels, and that's basically all of my collaborations with people. So I can't think of anything looming in like the next week or so in terms of collaborations, but obviously JW Podcast is ongoing. But yeah, if anyone has like a really good idea, then I'm always open to doing it or looking at it. Can you talk about your relationship with the World Cup as a Jehovah's Witness? I've kind of already talked about that, but yeah, it's kind of a strained thing, because you enjoy it and you do genuinely root for your national team, but you feel bad doing it. So it's actually nice to enjoy this World Cup without having any guilt at all. And I'm actually singing the national anthem, which is weird because I'm an atheist singing God Save the Queen. But I'm just doing it because I can do it now, of course. and it's quite a rousing song anyway. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. Okay, so now I can skip forward a little bit. Andrew says, what do you think it would take to get Watchtower's charity status revoked in the UK? That's an excellent question. I think that, first of all, there needs to be some really, really crushing exposure in the media so that, you know, so that politicians feel as though they have to act, similar to what we're seeing in the Netherlands at the moment. And we also really need the laws to be looked at, because it seems to me at the moment, and I confess I'm not an expert in this area, but it seems to me at the moment that just by being a religion, or once you get recognition as a religion, the charitable status is kind of inevitable, almost. So I think that in the UK, and probably in other countries as well, like America, people need to ask some hard questions about what relationship, if any, charities should have with religions. I mean, I'm personally fine with if a religion is sponsoring a charity that literally has no ties in terms of trying to rope people into the religion, I'm fine with that being a charity. I really am. But if there's any religion that is exploiting charitable status as a means of raising its profile and getting tax exemptions, I think that that should be considered criminal, quite frankly. So we have a long way to go, and we're on the wrong side of history at the moment. But hopefully by jumping up and down a bit and getting the media to take notice, we will stand a chance. Looks, by the way, a quick word on the technical side, it looks like my solution of switching to the data package has worked. It still looks quite fuzzy. The image looks fuzzy, but I don't know, it seems quite stable now, which is good. I hope it's coming through loud and clear for you guys. Frank Yepson says, Lloyd, congrats on England going through to the semi-finals. Thank you, Frank. I was absolutely thrilled, and I was glad as well that it didn't take too much of a toll on my nerves, which was the case during the previous game. So it was nice to actually just win by scoring the most goals and not having to worry about penalties, which was the case with Colombia. Canal de Urim also says, I would like to congratulate on the last two wonderful videos. Oh, I've read that, have I? Yeah. I think as my screen's... Sorry about this, folks. I've already answered that question. Right, so I need to skip forward to the questions I haven't answered. Right, yeah. So, Truth Seeker Atheist is saying feed is much better. Fantastic. Becky says, do you have an Amazon wish list? Becky, that's a great question. Maybe I should start up an Amazon wish list. The only problem is that Amazon is limited in what it will deliver to Croatia. But I guess if I have a wish list, I would just choose the things that I know can be delivered to Croatia. I mean, I'll think about it. I will think about it. But I think for now, I'm just happy with the amount of support I'm getting on Patreon, and yeah, I'm hoping that I can buy a bit more equipment during my forthcoming trip to the UK, which I'll maybe talk a little bit about if I run out of questions. But yeah, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. Truth Seeker Atheist says MacBooks are great. Do those fancy mics really make a difference, or do they just look cool? That's a good question. So this is my fancy mic. This is the Yeti Blue, and it does make a difference. I'll be completely honest, sometimes I listen to other YouTubers and they're using either this mic or maybe a more expensive mic, and I'm thinking, why does theirs sound so much better than mine, you know. And sometimes it's the same mic that they're using, and I'm thinking, well, maybe they've just got a better radio voice. I don't know, but all I can say is that there's a huge difference between this and actually what you're hearing me now on is the S7's microphone. If I was just recording a clean audio file on this, you would immediately notice the difference. So depending on how seriously you want to take doing YouTube videos, I would recommend the investment. I think that's something like $100, $150, something like that. But it makes a big difference to the sound quality. I'm down to the last 4 questions, and what I'll do then is just skip to talking about London a little bit, because that's a fairly new piece of news. And if you can think of any other questions, please let me know. Oh, another one immediately comes through from Tamara. Thank you, Tamara. So Frank says Croatia scored. That's brilliant. Hopefully they've managed to scrape through, and I will have my extremely awkward game of England versus Croatia. Truth Seeker Atheist says, what editing software do you use? Well, that's a good question. I actually use iMovie the most. I do have Final Cut Pro on my MacBook, and I do use that for more complicated things. So, for example, the potato dancing sequence on one of my recent JW Broadcasting rebuttals, that was done with green screen, and I just find it easier to do all that with Final Cut Pro. But when it comes to just my everyday videos, I use iMovie purely because there's less buttons everywhere, and it's far more intuitive, far more simple, and I'm not bamboozled by all of the options. But really and truthfully, I should not be so lazy, and I should figure out how Final Cut Pro works. One of these days I might go on a tutorial or something and really and try and, you know, improve my knowledge of video editing software. But for the time being, I'm quite happy with iMovie and what it allows me to do. It's a big step up from using Windows, I will say that. Truth Seeker Atheist also says, have you read Faith on the March, and does Watchtower still endorse that read? I also found a couple of A.H. Macmillan talks on YouTube. So with Faith on the March, I obviously have a copy in my collection, and I consulted it extensively when I was researching for The Reluctant Apostate, because there were elements of, particularly when I was trying to research about 1917 and what happened in the leadership coup when Rutherford took over. A.H. Macmillan's book was very important, really, for piecing together what happened. I mean, albeit he had a very biased take on everything, but I did consult heavily. I can't. It's possible that I've read the book cover to cover at some point as a JW, because I can remember it being in the house when I was growing up as a JW, but I can't be certain of that. But I did certainly consult it extensively when I was researching for The Reluctant Apostate. And I've never heard A.H. Macmillan talk, I don't think. I think I might have seen a brief clip of him somewhere, but if you could point me in the direction of him speaking on YouTube, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Tamara Whaley says, sorry I'm late, finally received my Cult Wars and Shunned t-shirts. Ordered one for my brother too, so I'll make sure to get a picture with us wearing them. Tamara, fantastic. I find designing the t-shirts quite therapeutic, because I've always had like a graphics kind of artistic side to me. In fact, I went to college for 2 years after leaving high school, and that's quite a rare thing for JWs. But as I write in my book, my parents were quite keen on me being able to support myself, so they permitted me to go to college, and I did art for a couple of years, and I like the way that the Teespring allows me to just have more of an outlet for my design kind of creative side, and it's also obviously a way for people to support my work, because in addition to getting a t-shirt, I obviously get some of the proceeds as well. So I think it's a win-win scenario for everyone, and I'm really glad that you've got your t-shirts and look forward to seeing the photo. I'm down to, it looks like, the last question. Oh, the last two questions. Actually, no, Frank is saying that Russia have equalised 2-2. So it's probably going to go to penalties now, which, frankly, I'm not sure I have the nerves for. Andrew Cruz says, do you think it would make a difference if all of us faded witnesses or physically in, mentally out witnesses started a movement similar to the gay rights movement where we all stood together vocally? Andrew, I've tried it, quite frankly. One of the first initiatives I got involved in when I was first getting involved in activism was an organisation, it's still around, it's called Our AAWA, and I obviously support Our's work. I'm good friends with the people who are still running it, but I will say that I think we all learned lessons from doing it, and a lesson that I learned, actually I was told before I got involved that trying to get ex-witnesses to work together was like herding cats. And in my kind of stubborn naivety, I was like, oh, nonsense, we'll make this work. But my friend was right. It's not as simple as saying we're all ex-witnesses and therefore we're all going to put our differences aside and work together, because apart from the fact that different ex-witnesses have different agendas, for example, some ex-witnesses might be content to just have left religion altogether, whereas some ex-witnesses might feel as though they need to bring people to Jesus. So straight away you have a source of contention or potential friction. But also people are at different stages in terms of their anger and dealing with the loss and the frustration of what Watchtower did to them. So I don't think you can just assume that everyone is able to work together, because not everyone is able to focus their anger in a productive way. And so yeah, although it sounds great for us all to join up and form this wonderful collective that's like a surrogate almost for Watchtower. I have tried it and I have to say it doesn't work. I've found personally that just doing my best on my own, quite frankly, well, not on my own, because I obviously collaborate with people and I have a fantastic team working with me at JW Survey, who incidentally, it took me a long time to find them and trust them enough to work with them quite as closely as I am working with them. But it's not quite as straightforward as you might think it would be my answer. But I definitely admire the enthusiasm to make a concerted effort to push back against the abuse and hurt that Watchtower is exporting. Let's see. Linda Lawton says, every single ex-JW I have spoken with met in the past 2 years of my finally waking up after physically out, mentally in of 20 years, indicates you or your channel have been most influential in helping them wake up or escape. Linda, that's very humbling to know. I guess that, I mean, it's nice to be helpful, or you say here influential, and I'm always blown away, especially when I meet people in person who say things like that. It's quite emotional to think that you can have that kind of impact just from posting a blog article or uploading a video. But I try to remind people wherever possible that it would, well, basically there's 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses who aren't awake, and the reason is that they don't have the bravery to question their beliefs. And really, I could say anything on YouTube. I could make the most compelling video ever made, and it wouldn't make a difference to an individual if they didn't have the bravery and the integrity and the intellectual honesty to challenge cherished beliefs. So I think that although I'm very, very humbled to have been able to help in some way and to be a little bit of a guide, I guess, really it all boils down to those individuals having the bravery to look behind the curtain, basically. But please pass on my regards next time you're speaking to them. I'm down to my last 3 questions, and then I'm going to talk about London, unless more questions come through. Truth Seeker Atheist says, long legacy with Bible students about working together smoothly. All are holding up the banner of truth. Yeah, so I guess that's relating to what I was saying earlier about herding cats. It's not always as straightforward as you might think to get people with roughly the same aim to come together. It has to be very carefully thought out at the very least. Linda Lawton says, continued, who was the most influential YouTuber for you then and now? If I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't look on YouTube much when I was first waking up. It was more about reading, and reading Crisis of Conscience and reading JW Facts. So I always say that the ones who were most influential for me were Paul Grundy and Raymond Franz. Obviously one of those is no longer with us, but I've made it clear in no uncertain terms that to Paul directly that he's really helped me. And but with videos, I don't think, I mean, people were obviously making videos when I was first waking up, but it just wasn't something I felt compelled to look at. Although I do remember looking at ex-Gilead missionaries' videos and being very impressed with those. And his videos are still up, and I actually think that out of all of the videos that you could show a witness who is in the very early stages of waking up, or even resistant to apostate material, I think his videos are probably easier to watch than mine because they're so sensitive and relaxed, and I guess I can be a bit cheeky sometimes and a bit naughty with my humour, but ex-Gilead missionary, I think he really understood his audience, and he really tailored the tone and everything to reaching out to indoctrinated witnesses. Apparently we're down to penalties with the Croatia game, so goodness knows what's going to be waiting for me when I get out of the room and speak to Deanna, who's glued to the television. Let's see. I think that's basically it. Truth Seeker Atheist says JW Facts is amazing, and I would agree there. So we've been on for about 40 minutes at this point, and I think I'm going to start wrapping up, if you guys don't mind, make this a slightly shorter one than the usual hour. But I will just talk a little bit about London, because we've decided, Deanna and I have decided to go to London for the final week of this month, July, and it's not a holiday, it's a working trip. So my plan is to attend the screenings for Apostasy. There's going to be a screening on the 24th and a screening on the 27th, because the official UK release of Apostasy is on July 27th, and I'm hoping to sit down with Daniel Cockatilo and interview him in person, and I'm absolutely thrilled at the opportunity to do that. I can't wait. Apart from anything else, we're both from Manchester, so it will be fascinating to catch up with a fellow Manc as well as a fellow ex-Jehovah's Witness. And I still haven't seen Apostasy, so I'm very much looking forward to watching it. I've obviously heard wonderful things about it. I also plan to do some filming. I've got one or two ideas that I'm bouncing around in terms of videos that I can film while I'm in England, and yeah, it's just going to be an opportunity to work back in the UK rather than being stuck here in Croatia. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I will obviously keep everyone updated with what's going on to the extent possible. But yeah, just a brief word on that. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to do that kind of thing, because the funding now is putting me in a position where, in addition to just focusing purely on videos and nothing else, so that's my job. I wouldn't say 5 days a week, I'd say 6 days a week. I have 1 day off per week. So 6 days a week I get to focus purely on making videos, and it's all because of Patreon. So thank you guys so much. It really is making a difference, and I hope you've enjoyed this live stream. I'm sorry if the quality was a bit rubbish towards the beginning, but I'm learning my lessons slowly but surely. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there, but I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you so much for your support. And I'm now going to do the awkward thing where I try and switch it off gracefully. So take care, everyone. Bye.